Well, again, thanks, Chief, for meeting up with us here. We read through both policies. One was for the body and dash camera, the other policy dealing with, I guess, complaints against personnel of the department. But as far as the body camera policy, does the city of Hutto have any component in the policy that would provide for an audit or review of body cameras?
The audit and review is done regularly by the sergeants and the lieutenants.
And how often is regularly?
2 or 3 times a week. As the sergeants, as they have free time between their shifts, they will review the video. And the lieutenants, as they have time between their administrative duties, they will review it. But at a minimum, it has to be done at least twice a week.
Twice a week.
And that's been my policy since I was assistant chief. And it's impossible to review all video. They do spot reviews. So.
Yeah, I think that's consistent with a lot of departments that we found. And you say these spot checks are done. Was that the policy in place in time during this incident?
I'm not going to discuss the ongoing investigation.
Well, I mean, how long has this policy been in play?
That policy was in place when I arrived.
When you arrived?
Yes.
Okay. In 2017?
Yes.
Okay. So as I know you say you do spot checks, are they doing every couple of stops, or is it just sort of a pick? The reason I'm asking detailed questions about it, I didn't see it in the policy where spot checks were a part of the written policy for the police department.
They will randomly pick an officer and a time frame and watch their video for 30 minutes of their video, an hour of video, depending on how much time they have. It's just a random choice.
And why is that done?
Well, that way you can't tell Officer 1, hey, I'm going to be checking your video later tonight. You don't want the officers to know that their video has been checked, so it keeps the officers on their feet and to adhere to policies.
To do the right thing.
To do the right thing, to adhere to policies, correct.
And is the reason, I guess the question is, what would be the reason to review those policies? Or when you got someone reviewing video after every shift, what's the reason you all are looking at those videos?
To make sure people are adhering to training, how they've been trained to react on conducting a safe traffic stop for them and for the public, to make sure that they're abiding by policies and our guidelines. That's the simplest reason. That's how you can way it for us to check on our officers without having to be with them all the time. Because our goal is to keep the officers and the public safe as possible.
To maintain a standard?
To maintain a high standard.
Okay. So when you all do, I know you have a random process for auditing, and that, again, that's something we found was consistent with a lot of departments across Central Texas. When you have a situation where there's not yet a complaint of a use of force, or there's not someone making an allegation, but in a mugshot, someone is bruised, apparent injuries to them that they did not have before an encounter with law enforcement, would that also trigger a review?
If our supervisors identify a violation of policy or a violation of the law, they are going to take action. It will trigger a response from us for an internal investigation. Because that is part of the process. Remember, I said keeping the officer safe and keeping the public safe. So it's got to be make sure the officers are being safe, and our public is safe. So if there was a violation noted, it would trigger. It could be something as minor as retraining. I mean, on a vehicle approach or on approach to domestic, he parked too close to the house. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, you parked too close to the house. You should have parked 2 houses down and approach from an offside to keep you safe. If we find an incident where an officer violated a policy, then it may require disciplinary action, or it may require retraining, or both.
And when you get down to looking at the disciplinary process, I didn't see specifically when an officer is charged with a crime, but because I think the policy indicates that an investigation into a complaint, it starts by either a written complaint signed by the complainant, or an informal, I think is what the policy said, verbal complaint made to an officer, or an officer witnesses what he believes may be a crime or a policy violation out in the field.
Or someone can call us
Right.
and file a complaint. They can send us an email to file a complaint. Any form of media to contact us, they can file a complaint in that manner.
So what happens when an officer is charged with a crime?
Then we conduct an internal investigation, and the type of offense and whether it's sustained, unfounded, et cetera, determines the course of action that we take.
And in the policy, it also indicated, it didn't indicate a line for suspension with pay. There's a suspension without pay provision.
There is.
What might cause you to, an officer's arrested, charged with a crime, later indicted, what would be the rules for allowing an officer to stay employed with the department but suspended with pay?
Well, we have our policies guideline if we receive the complaint. If an outside agency conducts an investigation and we've never received a complaint, then that's an anomaly that will be addressed on a case-by-case situation.
But your policy also requires an officer charged with a crime to tell you.
Yes, it does.
Being charged with a crime is I notice your policy will trigger certain things that happen at the charge. Does an indictment, after, we'll get to the point after the charge, but does the fact that an officer may be indicted after the initial charge, does that change anything as far as the status, the investigation the department may be doing?
No, we'll conduct our internal investigation if we've received a complaint. We'll still continue our investigation.
And by receive a complaint, because the policy does define what these particular terms mean, but
yes.
Just the indictment, the charging document, you all consider that the filing of a complaint indirectly?
No. If you as a citizen contact us saying, officer number 3 treated me horribly, he twisted my arm, that's a complaint. I'm not talking about a criminal complaint or a criminal charge as you're referring to.
But when it is a criminal complaint or a criminal charge, if you're not told by the officer and you all pick it up from the prosecuting agency, for example, does that trigger your internal investigative processes, or what happens at that point?
Well, like I said, we're going to address on a case-by-case situation. So, and I know where you're going with this, and I'm not going to address that because you're trying to lead me into an ongoing investigation.
We're just trying to understand why in a situation that's just like this, why an officer is still 6 months, 7 months later on the force in a paid status with an indictment hanging over his head. We're trying to understand what that policy is.
No, I'm not going to discuss that investigation. That's an ongoing investigation. No, I'm not going to discuss that.
But Chief, you can discuss that what we do in a situation like this is at the happening of the incident, that would trigger a use of force report.
Well, so what?
Then we
So
complete
it would
an investigation, and based on the outcome of our investigation, we
Yes.
make a determination of his disciplinary action.
She just said it. So if you want to go in your hypothetical situation, we have a use of force. All use of force is required review by the sergeant, the lieutenant, the assistant chief, and myself. And then we discuss the use of force.
Okay.
If we believe the use of force to be within the law, then no action is taken. Or the use of force may just be, the use of force was fine. But again, like a training situation, approach to a house, the way they applied handcuffs or a search of an individual, it may require additional training. So, and that's how we would handle that.
Got you. So, and I think you indicated earlier, you all, there was an internal investigation done. This wasn't something you all just, there was a charge made and then later an indictment, and the police department's just sitting back waiting on the DA's office and the prosecution to finish.
The DA office's case is separate from.
Yeah, it's separate from anything that we did. That was an external thing, and I'm not going to discuss it any further. Jody, I'm not going to talk to you about that.
Okay. We have to ask.
I know that's another agency's investigation. I won't speak to their investigation.
Yeah, and I'm not asking about their investigation. I just want to make sure that we relate to the public that you all had processes to internally investigate.
We do have processes to internally investigate, and we do due diligence, and do what we believe is in the best interest of the public and the city and the officer. So we do, and when and our policies were followed to the letter, and
And that's the answer we were looking
Okay.
for, is, whether they were followed. We just got to be clear in laying out that there are policies and what the policies are,
Okay.
whether you all did it. And I know you're sort of hamstrung here
Yes,
a little
I
bit
am.
by that, but that's why I'm asking the question, is
Okay.
not to badger you, it's just did it happen? So,
Okay.
Because it's a tough
You're just-
situation to not be able to talk about it specifically to answer the questions that y'all need.
yeah.
Because of the
And I don't want you to think
civil-
that,
Yeah,
but I can't speak about anything under litigation, and you know that, you're an investigative reporter. So, I
Well,
can't-
and because there is civil litigation.
there's civil litigation and criminal litigation, and I'm not gonna speak to any of it.
I understand.
And it's
So-
less the criminal litigation, more so than the
Civil
civil
litigation,
litigation that
correct.
we're bound by, that we're hamstrung by.
Got you. So, I mean, the other questions we have, and this,
I can tell you this, our officers receive on an average of 211 hours of training a year. That's the highest in the county. Part of that is de-escalation. Part of that is interaction with the public. It's all mandated. Our officers are very well trained. I mean, we have the highest training hours on average per officer in the county. So we take our duty to the citizens very seriously. We take our job very seriously. I'm very passionate. I don't know if you ever see me speak to the council. I'm very passionate about what I do. And I believe in serving my community. I believe in the oath of office that I took. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years now. And I'm third generation. So this is something that's near and dear to me. And so we do everything we can to ensure that our public is protected and the officers are protected in the service of our community.
well, I think one thing that was stated publicly was that by the city's filing of an answer to the civil complaint, the city has denied the allegations. The city, apparently you all have conducted an internal investigation, and we would have to assume and conclude that because of the current employment status of this one officer accused, the fact that the other officer, the supervisor in this case, is still working the streets, that you all didn't agree that there was any violation of policy or the law in your review. But the allegations in the civil filing are out. They're public. We'll be reporting on that. Do you have any concern about Officer Alcocer's ability to do this job and to do it honestly to protect the citizens of Hutto?
I'm not going to discuss her employment status or personnel actions.
But you can speak to what you just said about your belief in this
Yeah.
field and
Yeah.
your officers that work for us.
Our hiring process is very strenuous. You know, out of 20 applicants, we pick one or two, just like many agencies. We have if we have to travel to California to do a background investigation, we do. If we have to go to Kentucky or Florida, we travel out of state to make sure that we're getting quality officers. And on top of that, we want to make sure their officers are getting the proper training, the proper, and it's not just tactical training that we're talking about. We're talking about verbal communication with individuals, de-escalation, canine, and how to handle someone's dog when you're on a scene. We go above and beyond to make sure that we provide. It's not clicked off. I'll let you know.
Thanks.
Above and beyond to let you know. To let our citizens know that we are giving them the best product we can give them. We spend an extraordinary amount of money on training our officers. We probably have a higher training budget per officer than anyone in the county. I'm sure we do.
Well, as far as these two officers in particular, and this isn't a question about the ongoing litigation, but do you believe in the ability of these two officers to continue to police in Hutto?
I certainly do believe that. I certainly do believe in that.
As far as the internal investigations here, are those investigations complete, and is that something we will be able to take a look at?
I have to run that by our PIA, our public information attorney.
I'd ask the attorneys how this
Yeah, we have to talk to our
litigation-
attorney. I don't know if we can release an internal investigation. I'm on, I don't know,
Gotcha.
so.
Or the results? I guess the question is, we're interested at this point in its findings. Again, both officers accused here are employed, continuing to be employed with the city. The obvious question the public will have after seeing this video and the allegations of what happened would be, what did the investigation show? And I know there's civil litigation out there, but
Have you seen the video, Jody?
yes. So, but the last thing we'd have, you stand back at the end of all of this, and we're going to the public will see the video, the public will see the allegations made, the public will see what they can of the city's handling of this investigation, or the handling of the incident, as far as we can't see the results of what you all came to the conclusion, but you can assume, by virtue of the fact that both are still employed, assume what that outcome may be. Everything will run its course through the court system. What do you want the people who see this report to know about the conduct of the police in Hutto to police, and when they may make mistakes wearing that badge, about the city's seriousness of making sure that the public's protected?
I already told you we have a high standard for hiring, which we do. We have a high standard for training. I told you how I feel about the oath of office that we take, and I hold my officers accountable to that. Even if it's something as minor as your boots aren't shined. Why do I care about boots not being shined? It's appearance to the public. He looks like a professional officer. If his uniform is professional, he's going to conduct himself professionally. And, you know, the last thing I would like to add to that is our officers are going to protect themselves and the public. They're going to do in their training. They're there to serve. Our officers go out of their way to assist citizens every day that we don't even put out. And our PIO bothers me and asks me, what are they doing, what are they doing? A recent example, recently had a home, no water, no electricity. My officers handle that on their own time. Another lady had no air conditioning. One of our ACOs took that upon herself to get people together to fix her plumbing, her air conditioning, basically remodeled the house. And if anyone following social media in Hutto will see that. So too often we look at the one bad incident out of 19,000 calls for service, or CAT events, if you will. 19,000 contacts, and we pick that one thing. That's less than 0.0001111%. So I want people to keep that in mind. 19,000 contacts as of July this year. And the officers are going to protect themselves and the public. In the end, they are going to do that.
Well, Chief, the last thing I'd have to say, because what we're trying to
That's
do
the
is...
third time you've said that.
Yeah, I know. Well, you keep giving me different ideas. Because what I'm trying to do is summarize this, all right? So it's a very clear answer. Not saying you're not being clear in your answers, but I told you I don't ask very good questions. So I have to. But we've got video. There's an indictment in the case. There are allegations in a civil lawsuit at this point. You believe those three things together may not tell the complete story here?
I believe it does not tell the complete story.
There's another side to this.
There is another side. So that's about all I'm going to say about that.